I'm going to assume if you're watching this, you've probably already seen Commando. That's fine, but let me make the argument here that Commando is one of the purest action films ever made. What makes Commando work is its simplicity.
You know what I like best?
What's that?
The price.
Arnold's daughter is kidnapped by terrorists who want Arnold to assassinate someone in exchange for her release, but Arnold doesn't play that.
And if you want your kid back, then you gotta cooperate. Right? Wrong.
He kills everyone in his way of getting her back. That's the plot.
So all fucking hell is gonna break loose.
That's it. Character work is thin, but it doesn't matter. Everything is in service of the action, the plot, the muscles, the humor.
You're a funny guy, Sully. I like you. That's why I'm going to kill you last.
I mean, it isn't a tradition of the great westerns. I mean, it's the wild bunch with one guy, you know. I kind of looked at it like a John Ford with his old-style westerns.
It's a job for a whole company of Rangers, or it's a job for one or two men. Right now, we're too many and not enough.
Me, I'm going on alone.
Going back to something like The Terminator, it quickly became apparent people identified with some aspects of the film's villain.
The Terminator represented something to people, a kind of a dark side of the human psyche. People want to have that fantasy of being able to do exactly what they wanted to do whenever they wanted to do it.
Emboldened by the success of films like Missing in Action and especially Rambo: First Blood Part 2, Schwarzenegger was quick to capitalize on the power fantasy element represented in these films.
It's every American's fantasy of taking on evil and one man against an army.
He understood he could embody a kind of Hercules-like hero figure. The plot, effects, and action all orbit around his persona.
See you later. I'm gonna go this way now.
Make no mistake, the winking humor and impossible badassitude of the John Matrix character are by design. Schwarzenegger's design.
Every film that I do, I have a tremendous amount of input. If it is choosing which script we're gonna film, which director we're gonna hire, which kind of changes we're gonna make in a script, who are the stunt coordinators, and on and on and on, and how gory a scene is gonna be or not.
It's not like Commando was anything especially different in terms of its imagery or one-man army concept, but it had Arnold, and that made a world of difference.
On film, of course, he's mythological. And he has a Superman. He can do anything. I mean, you couldn't put anybody else in this part because you wouldn't believe anybody but Arnold could pick up a phone booth and throw it, or fight 100 guys, or, you know, throw giant pipes and all this type of physical activity.
See, Arnold gets it. He was one of the first meta stars out there. If you see him in a film, it's pretty much assumed you've seen at least 2 of his other movies, and whatever he did in those movies is carried into this one. He was a near indestructible cyborg in his previous film, so expect him to be near indestructible here as well. He said the famous "I'll be back" line as a threat there. He'll do the same thing here.
Hey, hold it. I'll be back, Benny.
Not so much to the villain, but to the audience. Arnold is winking at us. The villains don't quite know what this man is capable of, but we certainly have an idea. This is why Arnold's star eventually eclipsed his contemporaries Chuck Norris and Sylvester Stallone. As Arnold developed his on-screen persona, he also developed his fandom through immense amounts of audience-pleasing wish fulfillment and the spirit of inclusion coming from these little in-jokes.
Remember, Sally, when I promised to kill you last?
That's right, Major. You did.
I lied.
Because when Arnold says,
I'll be back. I'll be back.
I'll be back.
it signifies he's going to fulfill that promise with loads of audience-pleasing ass-kicking. And in Commando, it's probably the best of these. After over an hour of build-up, the movie climaxes in a truly explosive finale. The bad guys literally send wave after wave of soldiers to kill Schwarzenegger. He uses knives, grenades, shotguns, machine guns, handguns, whatever this is. More machine guns.
Is this a violent film?
Well, it is an action-packed film.
Action.
You know, it has some violence in there.
All right, do you need to explain anything here, or is it just all gunfire?
And when he runs out of bullets, it's random hardware.
This new film you've made, Commando, it's very violent, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah, there's a lot of action, but actually it's very low-key. I only kill around 100 people in that film.
Commando is action as entertainment in the best possible way.
I eat green berets for breakfast.
It's nowhere near as self-serious as the Rambo films it is most often compared with.
Murdoch. I'm coming to get you.
Now, a lot of people feel that Rambo and the Commando...
It's been, of course, compared to Rambo.
And it's all the better for it.
The most important thing that made this movie work was that it did not take itself seriously.
This is really the first Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. Sure, he was Conan the Barbarian and the Terminator, but Commando is where we first see Schwarzenegger as we know him today.
Leave anything for us? Just bodies.
So go out and watch it again. It's worth checking out the early catchphrases that would make Arnold a household name and seeing people like the Warriors David Patrick Kelly and the Road Warriors Vernon Wells, and even Bill Paxton in a Blink and You'll Miss a cameo. If nothing else, you owe it to yourself to see the film that inspired Tarantino to make a film about the rest of two hitmen's day before and after a job.
Was basically kind of the beginning of, at the time, of almost every Joel Silver movie, which would start off with like a couple of hitmen showing up, boom, boom. All right, you want to witness something? Witness this. And then they shoot the guy, and then it cuts to Arnold Schwarzenegger walking through the forest, and eventually he's going to meet those guys. And so I thought, well, what happens if we hung out with them all day long? All right, after they've killed the guy, what happens to the rest of their day?